In a moment that has sent tremors across the political landscape, Britain has been thrust into an extraordinary crisis. Without warning and with no hint of prior consultation, Prime Minister Keir Starmer appeared on live television to announce that the 2025 local elections would be delayed until 2027. The news landed like a thunderclap. No parliamentary debate. No public discussion. Just a unilateral decision, wrapped, Starmer claimed, in the need for council reform. But behind the veneer of administrative housekeeping, a far darker narrative is beginning to unfold. Westminster is in uproar. Veteran politicians and newcomers alike are aghast. Political observers are now openly asking whether we are witnessing a deliberate attack on the democratic fabric of the United Kingdom. Starmer insists the delay is necessary to modernize council systems. But critics from across the aisle argue this is a smokescreen, designed to shield something far more sinister, a sprawling financial scandal involving a staggering $22 billion in vanished public funds. Inside the Labour Party, the fallout has been explosive. Once hailed as a party of iron discipline under Starmer, Labour is now in open disarray. Senior MPs are distancing themselves. Allies have gone silent. Whispers have turned into public rebukes. Some have even called on Starmer to resign. One high-ranking Labour MP, speaking anonymously, described the move as a dangerous breach of democratic norms, warning that such backroom decisions risk setting an irreversible precedent. Outside Westminster, the British public is furious. Voters are now being told they must wait 2 more years before they can have their say in local democracy. To many, this is nothing less than a betrayal. A denial of their democratic rights at a moment when public accountability is urgently needed. Protests have erupted in major cities. Placards accuse Starmer of authoritarianism. Protesters chant demands for transparency, answers, and justice. At the heart of this storm is the explosive revelation that $22 billion earmarked for critical public services, healthcare, housing, education, infrastructure, has all but vanished. This money, distributed via local councils and regional authorities, was intended to repair decades of neglect in struggling communities. But now, allegations are mounting that it was squandered, misappropriated, or worse, siphoned into private pockets. Investigative journalists and public watchdogs attempting to follow the money have met obstruction at nearly every turn. Leaked documents are incomplete. Financial records are missing. FOI requests are stonewalled. Some local authorities are outright refusing to hand over public documents. Despite the obstacles, brave whistleblowers are stepping forward. One local government worker has alleged they were ordered to artificially inflate project costs, channeling the surplus funds under the guise of emergency COVID spending. Another has claimed that contracts worth millions were handed to faceless shell companies, entities with no proven experience, no known owners, and no delivered outcomes. Financial analysts were among the first to raise alarm. Last year, they flagged major inconsistencies in council budgets. Projects that were fully funded in 2021, housing schemes, transport upgrades, community health clinics, remain unfinished or completely abandoned. In one striking case, a multi-million-pound medical facility in the north exists only as a fenced-off construction site, gathering weeds and questions. The evidence points not to isolated errors, but to a systemic collapse in oversight, some say deliberate. And as pressure mounts, so too do the suspicions that Starmer's decision to delay the elections was not born of reform, but of fear. A calculated attempt to buy time, delay investigations, and cling to power as the scandal gains momentum. Now, with the eyes of the nation upon him, Starmer faces the greatest test of his leadership. Opposition leaders are demanding a full parliamentary inquiry. Many are calling for an independent commission to track the missing funds. Labour backbenchers, once loyal foot soldiers, are now breaking ranks. Fearful for their own futures, they are beginning to speak out. for a party that promised integrity and openness, this may mark a point of no return. What began as an obscure announcement has snowballed into a full-blown national crisis. The integrity of British democracy, and the future of its leadership, is now in question. As public anger grows, the question is no longer whether Keir Starmer will respond, but whether he can survive what comes next. Is this the beginning of the end for Starmer and British democracy? If Prime Minister Keir Starmer truly had no knowledge of the missing billions, then serious questions must now be asked about his competence, and whether he's fit to oversee not only his party, but the entire machinery of government. The National Audit Office is said to have quietly launched an internal review. Meanwhile, pressure is mounting on the Serious Fraud Office to open a full-blown criminal investigation. The gravity of the situation is becoming impossible to ignore. Opposition leaders have seized on the scandal, accusing Starmer of clinging to power under the guise of bureaucratic reform and betraying the very public trust he vowed to uphold. The decision to delay local elections from 2025 to 2027, announced without parliamentary approval or public consultation, has sparked nationwide outrage. The streets have spoken. From Manchester to Bristol, London to Glasgow, demonstrators have filled city squares demanding the restoration of democracy. Banners emblazoned with slogans like "Where's our vote?" and "Where's the money?" have become commonplace as frustration spills over into widespread civil unrest. And yet, Starmer remains unmoved. He continues to insist that postponing the vote is part of a broader plan to modernize local governance. But these reassurances have done little to stem the tide of public anger. Confidence in his leadership is evaporating. Even traditionally neutral voices are now calling this the most severe political crisis in Britain's recent history. But the tremors are being felt far beyond British shores. International media giants, the New York Times, Der Spiegel, Le Monde, and the Washington Post, have devoted front-page coverage to the unfolding drama, warning of a dangerous erosion of democratic values in one of the world's oldest and most respected parliamentary systems. Global watchdogs have sounded the alarm. They warn that Britain's decision could set a dangerous precedent, giving authoritarian regimes around the world the excuse to dismantle elections under the pretext of reform. What message does this send to fragile democracies teetering on the brink? European leaders are reportedly holding tense discussions behind closed doors. Some fear Britain's maneuver could legitimize similar actions elsewhere. A continent still recovering from political instability now watches nervously as one of its most trusted democracies slides into turmoil. Meanwhile, the economic impact is beginning to bite. The pound has taken a noticeable dip. Investor confidence is faltering. Ratings agencies have issued blunt warnings. If political uncertainty drags on, the long-term outlook for the UK's economy could darken significantly. Foreign investment, already sluggish, is likely to retreat further. Britain's credibility on the world stage is under threat. But beyond the markets, beyond the headlines, the sense of betrayal among ordinary citizens is profound. Civic groups, community leaders, and everyday Britons are speaking with one voice: democracy has been hijacked. If elections can be postponed without scrutiny, if billions in public funds can vanish without trace, then what remains of Britain's once proud democratic tradition? For many, this is no longer just a political scandal. It's a national identity crisis. This is a moment of reckoning. A defining test not just for Starmer, but for Britain itself. If accountability is not demanded now, what future violations will go unchecked? In Westminster, the mood is grim. A leadership challenge appears inevitable. Analysts say it's no longer a question of whether Starmer will fall, but when. The Labour Party, once rejuvenated under his leadership, is now on the brink of implosion. More whistleblowers are rumoured to be stepping forward. More leaks are said to be imminent. Journalists, emboldened by public pressure, are digging deeper than ever before. The narrative is shifting. From whispers to headlines. From speculation to outrage. Some say the damage to Labour's credibility is already irreversible. Others still cling to hope that reform can prevail. But one thing is certain, Britain is at a crossroads. This isn't just about a Prime Minister or a political party anymore. It's about whether democracy in Britain is still alive. Can Keir Starmer weather the storm? Or has his government already passed the point of no return? The answer may determine not just the fate of this administration, but the very future of British democracy. What do you think of these explosive developments? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on this fast-moving story, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is One Story Britain, and the world cannot afford to ignore.